भेज दूंगा साथ merge करके. So when you have data type testing means normal, abnormal, extreme, which means you need to test the data that will be entered into the system. You need to see that is that data acceptable or not. For example, the price is between 1 and 10, 5 is acceptable, okay, 12 is not acceptable, ABC is not acceptable. So any abnormal value is abnormal, any normal value is normal, and extreme basically means 1 is the lower extreme limit and 10 is the upper extreme limit. Frankly speaking, 1 is acceptable and 10 is acceptable, but they are at the extreme ends. This is how we test the data, okay? Once again, there are two categories of testing. The types, I would say, system testing, test the system in one go, and unit testing, test the system in units, which means test the input separately, test the process separately, and test the output separately. Documentation, I'm pretty sure you are aware of documentation. Whenever you make a system, okay, it could be any sort of system, obviously, just like when you purchase any hardware or any other thing, you always get the user documentation. In case of softwares, you know how to press F1, which gives you the help guide. Now, user documentation includes the following. You should always remember this during the exam. It includes what? It includes, obviously, so if you want, if you purchase a new software, a 3D software, they will always tell you the minimum hardware and software requirement. What type of system, computer specification do you need to have to run that? How will you be installing it? How will you start and stop the program? And there will be lots of other features available how to use the system, which will be done through screenshot, which will be done through videos. Okay. So, and any explanation of any error message that you might face because of any hardware conflicts or troubleshooting guide as well. So yes, user documentation is all about how to use the system. I'm emphasizing on these points because in the exam, please mention the point from here that these are the points of user documentation. So user documentation obviously is made for the user to know how to use the system. Then we have technical documentation that has to be made. Well, technical documentation, obviously from the word technical means people who are developing the system. Okay, so people who will be developing the systems, they will need a documentation. Why? Well, you have a programmer and the programmer leaves and probably next programmer comes in. Okay, so we should always have a documentation because when we develop systems for different organizations, the life cycle keeps on going on. The same organization might say after 1 year or after 2 years, you know what, we need to actually add new features to the system or so on and so. So in that particular case, if you go back, you obviously will forget when the time passes by, how does the system work? Okay, what are the secret codes, the input, process, and output, what was important? So these are the points that will come in technical documentation. You have to mention the hardware and software requirements again in technical documentation because obviously, like I told you, you will forget what it is and it has to be documented somewhere. The data structure, which was not part of our user documentation. Data structure basically includes is that if you're using any database to save, you will define it thoroughly. You will tell what data types were used, what field names were used, what validation rules were used, what relationships were created, so on and so. So you will explain everything. You will explain everything. Why? Because anyone who comes to redevelop the system, you're not going to waste their time. You know what? You explore it yourself. No. We don't do that. We need to facilitate everyone as much as we can because time is money and it has to be saved. Time has to be saved as much as you can. Okay, so a full and thorough explanation of the data structure has to be part of the technical documentation. You need to have details of expected inputs, what you expect the system to input, what the expected output will be, should be part of it as well. Any validation checks, like I told you before, is part of your data structure. Explain how data is processed. Diagrams. Okay, so you could use diagrams or flowcharts to represent all this. Okay, flowcharts are a very good diagrammatic representation of how data flows within a system. Okay, as far as algorithms, or you may call it algorithms, are concerned, you know that there are three ways of doing solving a problem. One is English prose. One is pseudocode. Pseudocode is structured language, not proper high level language like Python or something, but you start with begin and end, and your if selection statement are indented, so on and so so. But you can also use flowcharts. So you could even have pseudocode over here. You could have English prose, or you can have flowcharts. So flowcharts is a very good way to show someone, to tell someone, you know what, this is how the entire system works. When you click on the main page, when you begin, you have the following option. Okay, when you click on this, it can go there, it can go there, and then it can come back. So you can just explain the entire thing. Anyway, so then the very important implementation also means is installation. Okay, so installation of the new system, because you have also made your documentation, everything is ready. There are different ways you can implement. It's not just that you'll go and implement. So direct implementation basically means that you need to talk about two things. One is the old system, which I'll represent through O, and one is the new system that I'll represent through N. So the old system that we have and the new system that we have will be implemented, and this will be implemented, let's say, in a particular timeline. This is the 1st of July, and we want to implement it right away. So when you directly do it, you are given less time, first of all, to implement the new system. So what happens is after this timeline, you will get rid of this system. You will get rid of this and you will implement the system. So when you implement the system, there's a big problem that what if the new system doesn't work? And there's a problem because we have not given sufficient time. Okay, so the new system is set up and running immediately. That's the point. Okay, takes the minimum time and effort. So takes minimum time and effort. This is an advantage and this is a disadvantage as well. Because when you're giving it minimum time, you're giving it less time to debug, to find the discrepancies in the new system. Okay, so if the new system fails, there is no backup, like I mentioned in the notes. So if you don't have any backup, you don't have the system, the new system fails, what do you have? You don't have anything. But it depends. It depends on the scenario. Do you want direct changeover? Do you want to install where you want minimum time? So it depends on. You have to read the scenario and this is the way we'll answer. Then we have parallel. Parallel is good. Parallel is good if the organization can actually afford parallel, which actually means is you have a system that is going in parallel. So the old and the new, the old system and the new system will go in parallel, side by side. You will manually take the attendance and you'll use a biometric to take the attendance, and this will go on. How long will it go? Unless and until you're satisfied. Expensive hota. Yes, it will be expensive, but it's very good method. Okay, because you are actually you're sure that the backup is there and you'll not lose anything. It takes a lot of time and effort. That's a disadvantage. Okay, and will cost more capital. Okay, and if the old system breaks down, iski advantage hai, fine. Phased implementation, very important. Phased implementation hota ye hai ke you need to see that, let's say, your system, if it can be implemented in phases. If you have different modules, if you have your software has different, your system, sorry, I should not use the word software. If your system has different parts, inventory control system, attendance system, and so on and so on. You will tell them, you know what, I want to replace the old with the new for the first module. I want to replace the old with the new for the second module. What by module I mean is I want the inventory control system to be replaced with a new one. I want the attendance system to be replaced with a new one. And so on and so on. Even if we have 5, we'll be replacing them. So in phases. So in phases, according to our priority, we'll be implementing. So it's gradually get used to it. Okay, staff can be trained according to. So we get more time to train our people. So it's good. It's a good way. Okay. So again, this disadvantage, just like direct, if this fails, we don't have a backup because it is just like direct, but it has been cut down. Okay. So this is what phased is. Now, again, I'm telling you, these implementation methods are dependent on the scenario. Your typical question does of 8 marks does say that list down and explain the type of implementation methods used. So आपने ये चारों बताने हैं. चारों कौन से? Yes. I did not mention pilot in my notes, but I'll explain it thoroughly to you. Pilot is just like direct. Well, and I think so you know what pilot means. Pilot testing का मतलब ये होता है कि आप partially, you see, I'm overlapping the new system a bit with the old system. मैं कहना क्या चाह रहा हूँ? देखो, pilot का मतलब होता है before we actually implement the system, we will run partially of it. ये हमने इधर नहीं किया था, indirect. Pilot implementation में होता ही है कि let's say you have 10 branches and you want to implement the new system in all 10 branches, but you'll not do that. You will implement fully in one of the branch. And if it works properly, so I could say is that these are my 10 branches, so मैं cut down कर दूं. So I will implement this in one of the branch fully, फिर मैं इस पे जाऊंगा. So if it works properly, then I can actually implement it. इसको पायलट कहते हैं. You might have heard of the word कि अगर पायलट रन कर लेते तो इशू ना आता. पायलट का मतलब है prior to the implementation, prior to the installation, we should test the system thoroughly, okay, and then we should do it. So this category is known as pilot implementation. Is that clear, both of you? What's pilot?
Sir, a little bit.
Huh? Saem?
It is still a bit confusing.
Okay. Did you get direct?
Yes, sir,
Did you
it
get
is.
direct? Did you get direct?
This as well, sir.
Okay.
This chapter is a bit confusing. It's really hard to catch up.
No, what, direct or what?
Both of these things, direct and pilot, and to be fair, the entire chapter.
No. Why is it tough for you?
I don't know, sir. मैं काफी देर से उसे concentrate कर रही हूँ, काफी उसे समझने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ, मगर वो मुझे नहीं समझ आ पा रहा.
आप ऐसा करो, I will share you this PDF file and you can go through it, and then you can even ask me in the next class. Okay?
Okay, sir.
And
Okay,
did
sir.
you realize the reason why did I directly land over to this chapter? अब आप realize कर रहे हो इस बात को, है ना?
Yes, sir.
मैं directly 6 पे क्यों नहीं गया, मैं directly 8 पे क्यों नहीं गया? Why did I come here? Because I told you this chapter important है और ये थोड़ा technical है. Okay, that's why I came here. Anyway, you'll take your time, you'll go through it. अब मुझे बता देना, ठीक है? मैं इसको उन points को I'll discuss them again as well. Okay? अच्छा, तो मैं ये बेटा
Okay, sir.
इम्प्लीमेंटेशन का मतलब होता है इंस्टॉलेशन. आपने एक सिस्टम बनाया है, यू नीड टू इंस्टॉल इट. अब वो इंस्टॉल आपने जहां करना है, आई एम टेलिंग यू, देयर आर डिफरेंट मेथड्स ऑफ इंस्टॉलेशन. विल यू यूज पैरेलल रनिंग टू इंस्टॉल द सिस्टम उनके कंप्यूटर्स पे? विल यू यूज फेज्ड? अब डिपेंड करता है ना, इट डिपेंड्स ऑन व्हाट दे वांट एंड हाउ कैन इट बी इंप्लीमेंटेड, इंस्टॉल्ड. सो डायरेक्ट होता है कि आप डायरेक्टली इंस्टॉल कर लो, गेट रिड ऑफ द ओल्ड सिस्टम एंड एक डेट पे नया सिस्टम इंस्टॉल कर दो. Pilot basically is, मैंने आपको बताया कि instead of directly installing it, what you do is 100% pilot running, install it and run the system in one of the organization, one of the branches. Just pilot run it. And if you're satisfied, you will install the entire system in a particular date in rest of the branches. Okay? Overlapping मैंने इसलिए आपको करके दिखाई थी because I want to tell कि pilot में आप overlapping इसलिए कर रहे हैं कि you are installing it with the old system. आप इसको रन करके देख रहे हो, ठीक है? इसको पायलट रनिंग कहते हैं. अब पायलट आपने वर्ड सुना होगा, पायलट रनिंग. आफ्टर द पायलट रनिंग we will have an idea. So whenever we make a beta type or we make a prototype of something, we always pilot run the prototype. We don't give it in the market right away. हम उसको टेस्ट करते हैं. Okay, it's quite a generic word, pilot running. You might have heard of it. Ali, have you?
No, sir.
You never heard of, I mean, are you interested in cars?
Yes, sir.
So गाड़ी के जो pilot running पहले करते हैं, roads पे टेस्ट करते हैं, okay? So
अच्छा,
में
जी
करते
सर.
हैं, ये वो pilot run होता है. The first pilot run
Okay.
are in like
In other words, you are saying that it is a test run.
test run, exactly. It's a test run.
Okay.
Test run is an alternate word for pilot run. Exactly. Yes. Tazeen, did you get the point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. ठीक है. It's there's no problem. Balki I appreciate you're telling me that you are not getting some parts. But make sure when I share these notes with you, you go through them. You go through the book. Take your time. Chapter 7 मैंने स्टेप को पहले भी कहा था, थोड़ा confusing वाला हो सकता है, tough है, important है. So you take your time and make sure you know it. जब आप when you're done with the implementation, you have to talk about evaluation. But this is actually the most important part, because it's not that you simply develop everything, install it, and you leave. You, as a software engineer, you need to find out how was the system overall installed, implemented, and everything. So there are lots of questions that will come into your mind. First of all, are the objectives. You remember when we started with analysis, there were some objectives, and the objectives were what should the system do. We will list our objectives, what needs to be done. Now, evaluation will again look back at those objectives. You know what? We develop the following system, and the following system should be doing the new system should be doing the following things. So, evaluation में बात करेंगे. Have the following objectives been met? Yes or no? ठीक है. अब इस सारे को find out करने के लिए, we will be using the same thing. We will be using questionnaires, interviews, and observation. हम दोबारा इस तरह conduct करेंगे, and we will conduct this with the people who are using it, because we find out any limitation or problems of the new system, because we want improvements. We want के beginning में ही we can find out के is the system working properly? Do they like it? Does it make their work easier? Okay, what if anything could be improved? These are the questions as a system analyst I will be thinking of. And how do I answer these? How do I get the answer of these? Using these again to find out the limitations, to find out the problems of the new system. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So it's important that we always evaluate whatever we have developed. Upon evaluation, we will find out how properly, efficiently was the system developed. And evaluation is not, frankly speaking, just for the client. Evaluation helps my team as a system analyst to find out that how well did we allocate the resources, how smoothly, quickly did we develop the system, okay? And how can we improve our discrepancies, so on and so. Okay, I mean, you could get a twisted question in CI. Okay, didn't come till now, it could come, that in the system life cycle, how evaluation can benefit the system analyst and his team. So you can mention the points that I have talked about. You get my point? Okay. So
Yes.
future development. This is not mentioned in the book, but frankly speaking, without future development, the system life cycle, we call it system life cycle, right? So system life cycle is not completed without future development. Kyunke whatever improvements have to be done will come here. Whatever error and debugs were there need to come in future development. तो जब तक हम future development को discuss नहीं करेंगे, हम cycle को दोबारा start नहीं कर रहे. The cycle has to go on, and the future development will make the it begin again. You get my point? ये आपका entire system life cycle है. मैं आपको गारंटी देता हूँ, आप इसको thoroughly पढ़ो, आप book के through करो, okay? Since you have some problem, मैं आज past paper नहीं करूँगा, because I wanted to do some past paper questions with you of system life cycle, मगर there is no point unless and until जब तक आपको 100% समझ नहीं आता, मैं past paper करूँगा तो you will not be able to answer me, argue with me, उसका फायदा कोई नहीं है. मैं आपको टाइम दे रहा हूँ. हमारी जब नेक्स्ट क्लास होगी, ओके, इंशाल्लाह हम क्लास रख लेते हैं. लेट्स कीप इट सून, ओके, बिकॉज यू वांटेड. इंशाल्लाह हम संडे को रख लेते हैं. ओके,
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. मैंने क्लास इंक्रीज कर दी है वैसे आपके, मैंने 2 या 3 कर दी है. ओके, ऑल्दो आई
Yes, sir.
एम वेरी टाइट ऑन टाइम, मगर स्टिल ऑब्वियसली फाइन, बिकॉज ओके.
So what will be the time? for
हम
Sunday?
संडे को मिलते हैं इंशाल्लाह. और संडे को मैं पास करके सॉल्व करूंगा, बट प्लीज बिफोर संडे
Time for Sunday.
टाइम बेटा वही वही 9 ही रख लें।
Sure.
सर ये वाले नोट्स हैं, ये उस वाले पीडीएफ में थे जो आपने पहले भेजा था?
नहीं बेटा मैं भेज देता हूँ, ये उसमें नहीं थे,
ओके सर।
ये उसमें नहीं है, मैं भेज देता हूँ। और